All right, so good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another exciting broadcast with us here at Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. I know a lot of you are familiar faces in the crowd. We've got a lot of new classes too, including classes that have been dragged across the hall just to fill a room with like 50 kids, which is awesome. So a big welcome to all of you. If you are new to us, we are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world. And today is the perfect epitome of what we do best. We have 5 programs on the go today. We started off the day live in Brazil with a Darwin 200 ship doing the whole voyage of the Beagle. We hung out with Dominique Gonçalves talking about elephant conservation in Mozambique. We just finished with David Makepeace and eclipses all around the world. And right now live, we've also got a French program with our amazing friends at Waterton Lakes National Park. But you folks, the ones in this specific broadcast, are in for the biggest treat of all, because we are joined back again by the amazing team at the Toronto Zoo. The Toronto Zoo has been our digital education partner for several years now. We've done 35 plus broadcasts with them featuring all the amazing wildlife, conservation stories, and more that they've got on the go. But today we have a very special program, because in anticipation of Halloween and costumes and scary things, we are going to find out what goes bump in the night together by talking about some of the amazing nocturnal animals that, when we're all going to bed, wake up and explore the darkness around us. So I'm going to turn you over to Mary Ellen, the best educator you're ever going to have on, to tell a little bit about the amazing stories that they have at the zoo with their nocturnal wildlife. And so without further ado, thank you so much for joining us, Mary Ellen, and take us away.
Thank you so much, Jesse. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Toronto Zoo. My name is Mary Ellen, and I'm so excited to be joining you here today. These are my favorite thing to do. I get to do these videos with Jesse every month, where I take you around the zoo, some sort of theme. Usually it's related to what's going on in that season, and we get to learn all about these incredible creatures, different ways that you can also help them in the wild so that they can just continue to thrive. Now, Jesse's right. We are going to be talking about some nocturnal neighbors we see here in Ontario, but also maybe a few other species we aren't familiar with as well. And we're going to have lots of times for all your questions about them as well. Now, before we get started, I'm going to have Jesse bring up our land acknowledgement here for us, and then we will start our program. So we would just like to acknowledge that the land that we are on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississauga of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We would also like to acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit and the Williams Treaty, signed with multiple Mississauga and Chippewa bands. Thank you so much, Jesse. All right, so we are in our Americas Pavilion right now. So here at the Toronto Zoo, if you've never been here before, we lay things out a little bit differently. We go by a geographical range, which means we have areas like the Canadian Domain, the Tundra, Americas, Indo-Malaysia, Australasia, and Eurasia. So all these different areas are different parts of the world. So the animals that live in this section are from North and South America. So here in Canada, we are also in North America. So some of these might be some familiar faces. Now we're going to turn the camera around here and meet one of probably the most familiar faces for this type of animal. And they are a great example of a nocturnal species. Now it always takes me a quick second here to turn my camera around, but we will get a chance to see one of our great horned owls. So everyone, I would like to introduce you to the amazing, the fantastic, the beautiful, the slightly damp, because she loves the rain, Butters the great horned owl. Now we're currently standing inside, but where Butters lives in the zoo is called the Bird Barn in our outreach and discovery section of the zoo. And part of her exhibit allows her to be outside. And it is pouring down rain here in Toronto, and Butters was brought in from the rain to come and be our ambassador and teach us all about the amazing adaptations that nocturnal animals have. Now, Jesse kind of said at the beginning here, but in case somebody doesn't know, nocturnal is a name for different types of animals that we use that says that they like to sleep during the day and be awake at night. Now, the opposite of that is think like humans. We're diurnal, which means we like to be awake during the day and we prefer to sleep at night. But here's a question for the group. And if you've never been in a program with us before, you know that I love to ask a lot of questions to the audience. It's Jesse's favorite part too. But so we know nocturnal and we know diurnal. Does anyone know what crepuscular means?
Ooh, I'm going to bring this up as people can see the spelling of it as well. But anyone who wants to chime in the chat, we've got a lot of StreamYard classes with us. We've got a lot of YouTube classes. This is like a crazy full house today. So crepuscular. So we've got nocturnal, awake at night. We've got diurnal, awake during the day like us. Anyone want to chime in with crepuscular? We may have scared them, Mary Ellen. I'm not sure.
Oh, I'll give you a hint. It has to do about when an animal is awake during the time of the 24 hours. Oh, Butters is going on a little adventure here for us. And it has to do with 2 different times of the day.
Ooh. I can head to our room 9 and 12. If you guys have a thought, I'll come live to you and see if we have any thoughts. And Karar, what do we think?
Yes, thank you so much. This is my team, room 9 and room 12. And we did have a thought. We thought, does crepuscular mean in the middle, night and day?
Okay, on the right track for sure. So it kind of means on either side of it. So crepuscular is an animal that likes to be more awake at first thing in the morning at dawn and at dusk. Think about when you're, the sun is rising or setting and it's pointed directly in your eyes and you have to squint and you can't see anything. That's their favorite time to be around. And that's when it's best to hide from predators. So that's what a crepuscular animal is. They're asleep in the middle of the day and the middle of the night, but then active at the first thing of dawn and right at dusk time as well. All right, now that we've gotten that one done here, let's move on to our amazing Butters. So like I mentioned, Butters is a great horned owl. Now there's about 11 species of owls that live here in Ontario, and great horned owls are one of them. And not all owls are fully nocturnal. Some of them can obviously, like Butters right now, be awake during the day, but predominantly in the wild, they tend to be more active at night. And this is for a couple reasons. So the benefits of being nocturnal is that you can occupy the same space as another animal and not compete for any resources. So Butters here in the wild might be awake more at night, and other things think of songbirds and robins and blue jays, they're awake during the day. And then other animals like hawks are also tend to be more awake during the daytime as well. And that way they can all kind of live in the same habitat and not have to compete or worry about any food that they're trying to eat. Now, obviously, being awake at night can have some benefits, but it also has a lot of challenges. But animals that are meant for nighttime are specially designed for it. So if we're looking at Butters here, the first thing that you probably notice is her eyes. They are absolutely massive on her face. They take up a good portion. Even if you just kind of compare it and look at your neighbor in the room, you can look at their eyes compared to the size of their face. They tend to be a lot smaller in humans. And you'll see she's got that big yellow ring around the outside and that black circle on the inside. That's her pupil there. And the bigger that gets, the more light is let in so her eyes can actually see what's going on around her. Now, kind of interestingly, though, you're going to notice that Butters always has a pretty intense stare down at us. And that's because Butters' eyes are always facing forward. So I know it's not polite to always do this, but if you want, take turns, look at a neighbor and roll your eyes in your head. Give them a big exaggerated, oh my goodness, what are we saying? So Butters can never do that. She's not able to roll her eyes at anybody, even if she is annoyed. The most she could do is just kind of give us that really intense stare, and we would lose in a staring eye contest with her every single time. So the reason for this, though, is she has massive eyes that take up so much room that they physically can't roll around the ways that ours do. But she has an adaptation for that. You've noticed probably as she's been sitting here with us, her head is swiveling all around. And that's because there's people around us right now. The zoo is open, so there's guests around us. This isn't where Butters usually lives. So this is a new environment, a new space for her, and she's checking out what's around her. And she's tilting and moving her head all around. And you might have even seen it. We've seen the back of her head at the front of her body. Now, that's something we definitely cannot do as humans. Our neck stops way before that. Butters has about 270 degrees of motion, which is wild. It's so cool to think that she's able to rotate her head like that. So she can go about 3/4 around on each side. Not fully though. We don't want her to twist her own head off. That wouldn't be fun for anybody. Now, the next thing you might see here is actually kind of more directed at the back of her head and kind of at the side. So it's a little hard to see through the camera, but Butters' face is more shaped like this. She's kind of got more of a dish for a face. Now, she's a lovely dish. We love her so much. So it's not an insulting thing for her. It's very great for her as well. It helps to actually direct sound. So if you want, while you're watching this video today, if you cup your hands like this and you put it next to your ear and then move your head around, you can actually help to direct the sound that you're seeing and hearing all over the room. And that's exactly what her face does. It helps to direct that sound and kind of send it back towards her ears so that she is able to hear really, really well. Now, what is she trying to hear? What do we think? Looking at Butters right now, looking at her feet, those big sharp talons. She's got a nice sharp beak. Oh, and she's showing off her sense of flight here for us. What do we think that Butter the owl is going to be eating?
Ooh, anyone have any thoughts? I know we've got a lot of kids around right now. It's just a little bit of a stressful situation, but that's okay. We're going to calm Butters down and check in with one of our classes. How about Ms. LeBlanc's class? Do you guys want to come in and see what you think Butters might be eating? You want to unmute your mic? We'll check in and see what's going on. Hey, grade sixes.
Mice.
Mice. Great option.
Yeah.
Okay. YouTube, we've got, anyone else want to chime in? We got just questions coming in on YouTube. Mice is a good option. Anything else? Miss Fisher's class, we can come to you. Your mic's on. Hey, what do we think?
Small animals.
Yeah.
Small animals.
There you go. Yeah, you're right on the right track. So Butters is eating lots of meat. I'm not going to show it on camera right now because it's a little bit harder, but our keeper is, I don't know if you've noticed, our keeper is feeding Butters right now. And it is sections of small mice right now. So Butters is getting some food while we're standing here, and that's a part of her regular diet. And she is an expert hunter. So she's using that really good sense of sound to listen for the mice. And I don't know if you heard, she did give us a little bit of flight there. She got a little spooked by a lot of people coming around for a second. But you might have heard the people, but what you definitely didn't hear was Butters. She was absolutely silent as she was moving. And they have silent flight. And that's a really unique characteristic to owls. No other bird really has that. They tend to be very ruffly with their sounds and their feathers. But these guys have really soft feathers. And the way that they all fit together and they're able to move their wings, they are moving with silent flight, which is honestly just so cool. And it makes them a perfect predator. Now, before we move on from Butters and let her have a rest, I want to talk about ways that we can help Butters and other large birds of prey. So they are our nocturnal neighbors. We don't often see them. Sometimes we hear them. You might hear a hoot or a screech in the evening. But what happens is sometimes we're actually hurting them. When we're driving on the side of the road and we see garbage or we throw apple cores or fruits and veggies that we've been eating out onto the side of the road because we think, oh, it'll decompose. What happens is it actually attracts mice and other rodents over to the side of the road. And we just learned that Butters likes to eat mice. So of course, she's gonna go where all the mice are, which is right by the side of the road and a fast moving car is. So my lesson to all of us here today is if you have an apple core you're eating in your car, good for you, good to eat your fruit and veggies, but we want to make sure that we save it so we can compost it later at home or in a proper bin so that we can help save large birds of prey like Butters here. Exactly, we got the nod of approval there. So with that, we're going to give a quick goodbye to Butters and we're going to move on to a few other nocturnal species. Thanks so much, Butters. That was awesome.
Nice.
All right. So we're going to keep going here. I'm going to grab one more prop for us as we walk along our little adventure. And we're going to take a look through our Americas Pavilion. Now, Jesse, I'm going to need your help here a little bit. As you know, we've been in the Americas Pavilion a few times before.
Nice.
And one thing that's a little bit hard is sometimes our service goes down. And so if it does, just please let me know and I will make sure we move to a better location so that we can continue with all of our fun that we're having here today.
Will do.
Perfect. All right. So I'm looking in this tank here now, and you might think, Mary Ellen, there are some fish and a lot of leaves, and that's pretty much it in here. But if we look really carefully, and she's a little bit hard to find sometimes, what we're actually looking for is a snapping turtle. Now, I'm going to give you a hint. I just spotted her. Can anyone, you can just say in the chats, we'll see if anyone does it. Can anyone see our snapping turtle right now? I'll give you a hint. She's in frame.
The number of hands pointing at the screen that I can see in the background is priceless. So I think our kids are pretty good. They found her in the bottom there. That's awesome.
There we go. So it even took me a second to find her. But here is one of our snapping turtles. And they are an animal that you will commonly find here in Ontario. They're actually really common in golf courses. And that's because they tend to be built around ponds and wetland areas. And so they're a really common animal to see there. Now they get a bit of a bad rap. So they are a nocturnal species, so they're awake at night. But because of their name, snapping turtle, you know, it can be a little bit scary. And I get it, you know, you don't want you to lose your fingers to a turtle here, but they're still a really important animal for their kind and for their habitats as well. So we just want to be respectful of them. They don't want to have to bite us. So if we just leave them be, then they're happy to let us hang out as well. Now, snapping turtles are really cool though as well, just because of the way that they look. So most turtles you think have a big hard shell on their back and they're able to pull their body and their arms and their legs in. But snapping turtles, since they've got that strong bite, they do not have that ability. So their arms and legs and head are out all the time. And you can see actually now our snapping turtle here in front of us has done a really good job of camouflaging herself in so she can take her little daytime nap. So this is a pretty big tank here. And she's just buried herself under. At different points of the day, she might move to a new napping spot, but at night is when she's really going to shine. She's going to wake up, move around, and find her next snack. Now, I kind of mentioned here, it even took me a second to locate her. Now, I'm going to turn the camera back on myself here for just a moment and show you a way that we can find different animals, because it can be kind of difficult. I don't like being awake at night. I go to sleep every night at 9:30. I really enjoy sleeping. So it can be difficult for researchers to find all these different nocturnal animals. And we want to do it safely as well. But one way we can do it is with a camera trap. So I actually have one here. It's not set up to work right now, but camera traps are a really cool, non-invasive way that we can actually track and find nocturnal animals. Now you might say, Mary Ellen, we know they're there. Why do we want to have photos of them? Why do we want to see what they're up to? But it's really important to know all the different habits and movement of animals and different behaviors that they like to do so that we can help to save them. So we want to make sure if they really like going in this certain area, we don't want to build anything there. And the only way we'll know that is if we see them on a camera. Now, it's not always the clearest picture. I do have an example here for us. This is from 2022, and this was actually on zoo property. So this is a coyote actually found very close to where Butters lives, which is kind of cool. So here in the summertime at the zoo, we run a zoo camp, and our oldest campers actually get to set up our camera traps all over the zoo. And then throughout the week, they let it take photos. And then later on in the week, they actually go around, collect them, look at the photos, and analyze it to see what animals were walking around. And coyotes, they're pretty common. We get them all over the zoo, but we rarely see them during the day. But if you're here at night sleeping over, you got to keep a careful eye for them because we back onto the Rouge Valley here and they come out to say hi a lot. So you got to make sure you're always safe when you're walking around here at night. All right, I'm going to turn the camera back around here for us as we go and adventure to see who else we can find.
Ooh. By the way, can I just say that the night camera thing is like the coolest idea ever? Like, that's amazing. For any of our classes in Toronto and the GTA, that's an amazing opportunity in the future. Very, very cool.
100%. They're so cool to see and to be able to capture animals that you don't see during the day. And every once in a while, you know, we do capture zoo staff on them. And when they see the camera, sometimes they give us a little dance, which is also pretty fun. All right, now another animal. How are we doing for service here?
You're so far so good. We're gonna hope for the best. I'll let you know if anything goes wrong, and then we've also got wolf videos as backup, so we're all good no matter what.
Perfect. All right, I'm going to pause here then for us so we can take advantage of our good service here. So a lot of frog species are actually nocturnal as well. And they're really cool about it because even though they're kind of brightly colored, what gives them away at night, because it's so dark, is usually not their sight or what they look like, but actually their sounds. So if you get the chance, if you live anywhere near a forest or anything like that, if you get the chance to safely, you know, pop your head outside, maybe give a listen at nighttime to see if you can hear anything, you're probably going to hear some frogs and toads. Now, the kind of cool thing is you'll actually know you're getting closer to them because the closer you get, the less they make the sound. Once you start to get too close, they think, whoa, I don't actually want this person to come say hi to me. I want to back away as fast as I can. And so they actually stop making the sounds to make sure that you don't find their exact location. All right, we're gonna just come up here and see if we can see a few other ones. So these frogs obviously are not also ones that you're gonna find here in Ontario easily. These are called lemur leaf frogs and also our Puerto Rican golden frogs. So they're found more in South America. Unfortunately, in our pavilion right now where we can get to, we don't have any of our native frog species. But what I can show you instead is if we come this way, and we're going to take a look really quickly at a native turtle species. So these are Blanding's turtles in here. And these are actually ones from the wild. There are hatchlings. And we do a really cool program called the Head Start program here at the Toronto Zoo, where we will take baby turtles or in eggs, and we'll collect them, we'll hatch them, grow them for 2 years, and then release them back into the wild. And this is because when they're born, see how tiny they are down there? They're about this big when they're born. And when you're that big, pretty much everything can and will eat you. It's a pretty rough start in life for them. And we want to make sure that they are doing healthy and happy out there. So we grow them till they're about the size of my fist, like this, or the size of a baked potato. And then we release them back into the wild. And part of our team that does this is they're called the Adopt-A-Pond team. So the logo for it is right back there. But it's a really cool app that you can download on a cell phone if you have permission from a guardian or parent in your life. And you can download it on phones. And if you're out and about here in Ontario and you actually see a native frog, toad, turtle, tortoise species, you can report the sighting of it on the app. And that helps researchers and scientists like us here at the Toronto Zoo to be able to go out and make sure that those habitats are being saved for those animals and that we don't destroy them. So you could be helping to save the next generation of our Blanding's turtles here, which is so cool. Now, Jesse, I'm going to hope our video works for us here today. I don't know if I'm going to make it down to the other section, so we're going to quickly do a pivot here and come back this way. But if you wouldn't mind, if we can try bringing up our video. If not, we've got lots of other friends to talk about here. And that way we can learn about a few more, maybe more known nocturnal animals as well.
Amazing. No, this should work perfectly fine. So we're going to bring up our wolf video. Again, we wanted to see wolves in person today, but it is absolutely a downpour in Toronto, so a little bit tricky to get outside, and we don't want to get too wet. So I'm going to cue this up for everyone, and then you can tell us all about it. Well, unless you want to start with our lizard friend. What would you like, Mary Ellen?
Oh, go for the wolves. We're just going to hang out here with the chuckwall in the background for now.
Nothing like hanging out with Chuck Wallace. Here we are with our wolves.
Perfect. So these are our Arctic wolves here at the Toronto Zoo. And like Jesse was saying, we are going to go walk to them today, but the rain has just made that pretty difficult to do. So I've got a quick video clip here for us just to show us a little bit about them. Now, wolves are, again, primarily a nocturnal animal. They are awake during the day sometimes, but they do like to hunt and travel in their pack at night. and they use a lot of vocalizations. So animals who are awake at night, their hearing is really good, like we talked about with butters, and their sense of smell. And wolves tend to use hearing and their vocalizations and their sounds like yips, howls, that sort of thing, to communicate with each other and with other packs. That's their main way of saying, hey, this is my space. I don't want anybody else hanging out here or being around us. They're able to talk and communicate with each other by howling. So we do have a pretty large pack here. We have about 11 wolves in total. Now, an animal that's pretty recognizable here in Canada is a raccoon. But I have learned from experience, we do have 2 raccoons, micro and macro, here at the Toronto Zoo, that they're not a very common species if you're from pretty much anywhere else outside of North America. I've had family here this past summer from England, and the only thing they wanted to see was a raccoon. It was their highlight animal, which I just thought was so funny because here in Toronto, they are everywhere all the time. Now, they're a super adaptable animal, so they're around at night. They're supposed to be nocturnal, but oftentimes you'll see them out and about because that's when humans are out and about. Now, one of our last ones here we're going to focus on is bats. Now, they're probably the most classic nocturnal animal that you think of. And this is actually our bat team. This is how they capture bats in the wild, to put trackers on them. So that's a safe way. I know it kind of looked like the bat hit a mesh fence and then fell. That's kind of what it did, but it fell into a soft netted area. So they weren't going to be harmed. And then our team can go in, put a tracker on them, and release them back into the wild. And the tracker, just same thing like the camera, helps us to find out where they're going, what's going on, and how they're behaving and where they're living most of their life, so we can help protect that. This video here is actually from our social media here at the zoo. This is Jesse, and he was a bat that was born a few months ago here at the zoo, and he had to be hand raised. So unfortunately, he wasn't doing so well in the first bit of his life. Now, these are called fruit bats. So, by their name, they're going to be eating lots of different fruit and veggies. And so he was hand raised, and this process is about how we introduced him back to his colony of other bat friends. And now he's happily living with them all in the African Rainforest Pavilion. So if you ever come to the zoo, you can say hi to Jesse and all of his friends here at the zoo, and where they all are in the rainforest, which is pretty cool. I always love the up close on his face there. That's always a good time. Now, one of the main questions, we're going to stay on our chuckle wall here for a second, just so we have an animal friend with us. Now, interestingly enough, this reptile is clashing with our theme today because they are a diurnal species of lizard. So they are not quite in our theme, but we'll stay on them for a moment here. What other foods do bats eat? Let's talk about bats for a little bit longer here. So I said that we have fruit bats here at the zoo. But what do we think the bats here in Ontario are eating, or other parts of the world as well?
What do we think? Guys, again, share in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. There's so many live classes with us. I think it's the record of the classes we've ever brought on StreamYard, which is a good problem to have. Miss Price, Mr. Gossie's class, you guys, if you want to unmute your mic, I can come and you can yell it out. What do we think the bats eat in Ontario?
What do they eat?
Bugs!
Yeah, I heard mosquitoes there.
Lining up, Mary Ellen. Bugs, insects, all the insects is our main answer.
I love that. Yes, exactly. They are eating lots and lots of insects. They can actually eat 600 insects in an hour. That's amazing. We love bats. They get kind of a bad rep sometimes, the way that they fly around. It can be a little bit sporadic and they kind of move quickly, but that's just because of their echolocation and how they're navigating the world around them. And they're tracking insects who also fly incredibly fast, as you might have seen if you've ever tried to catch a fly who's buzzing around your head. They can be difficult to find and catch for sure. Now, bats are super cool. So ours eat insects here. We have fruit bats. Some of them do eat other small mammals and fish. And then there are a few bats in South America who do drink some blood of other animals as well, but it's not a super common one for them. Now, my last question for the group, because this was actually something that I had to refresh my own memory on this morning, and I think it's just amazing to know, is I'll give you a couple fast stats first. here in Canada, there's 18 types of bats who live here. In Ontario, we have 8 who live here natively. But how many bat species do we think there are in the world?
Okay, 8 locally, maybe 10 in the world. I don't know. Anyone want to chime in? Let's see. St. Mary, CES, Oakville, if you guys want to click on your mic, I can come to you if you want to answer and see what your thoughts are. Let's see. Hey guys, unmute. What do we think?
Hello.
Okay,
How many bats? How many bats do you think there are in the world?
How many bats do you think there are?
13.
I love the answers. We've got 100, we've got 1,000 on YouTube. In our chat, we've got a whole bunch of from 13 to 1,000. 400, 1,000. Oh, what's our answer, Mary Ellen?
I love that range. That is fantastic. There is actually over 1,000. So it's predicted about 1,200 to 1,400 different species of bats in the world, which honestly, I knew there was a lot, but that number really stuck with me this morning when I fact checked myself. It's just incredible to see. All right, I have showed you some amazing animals here, but I want to hear from our classes who are joining us. And we're going to come over. Now, again, this animal is more of a cheater animal for us today, but they're just so cool. There are, like we learned, some species of nocturnal turtles. Part of the problem with doing a nocturnal program in the middle of the day is you do have to use some filler friends here. But these are some of our painted turtles here at the zoo. So while we answer our questions, we're going to have them swimming about in the background because they always look like they're having a better time than everybody else around them.
They certainly do, and they're much more energetic than our chuckwalla. And this is someone who loves chuckwallas. We're going to head to all our classes, live groups. I'm going to come to each of you once. I think we'll probably have time for that. YouTubers, please do share some as well, and I'll take as many as I can. But Ms. LeBlanc's class, grade 6s, if you guys want to come on in first, unmute your mic. We can kick off with you and go through everybody. Hey, grade 6s. Hello, welcome in.
How can they swim with a giant weighted shell on their back?
Oh, that's good. Yeah, how can they swim with kind of that big shell on their back? So they are excellent swimmers. So hopefully one will get a little bit closer to us in this video while we're here with them, and you'll be able to see at their feet. They have webbed feet, so all their toes are joined together, which gives them a lot of power to kick and move through the kind of the water that they're going on. It means they're not so great on land, but they're great in the water. And I wish I actually had a shell with me. I could have brought one out. I should have done that though. But they're not that heavy. They're actually surprisingly lightweight. And, you know, just like when humans go in water, our lungs have air in them. And so that keeps us a little bit buoyant and kind of stay floating in the water. It's a similar thing for turtles. They're able to kind of swim around. They're not super heavy in general, and those fins really give them a lot of power to move.
Yeah, great question. Also very mesmerizing just watching the turtle, I've got to say. General Kerr, room 9 and 12, we're going to head to you guys next. Come on in and take us away.
Thank you. Well, first of all, Jesse and Mariella, thanks for all you do. We're really appreciative. And our classes brainstorm questions before. So hands down, friends, and listen. We have so many, but you covered a lot. But I noticed one theme in common is carnivore or herbivore. And I see with Butters the owl, that was definitely carnivore. Mariella, do you find the majority of nocturnal animals to be more carnivores, herbivores, or a bit of both?
Ooh. Oh, that's a great question. As you started asking that there, I quickly do what I say is I go to my mind map in my head and I start running through all the information that I have in there to learn about the animals in my head already. And I would say you're probably right. The majority of more nocturnal species tend to be carnivores. Now, it's not all of them. And you'll find a lot of omnivores in that list as well. So animals like skunks can be nocturnal, but they can also eat vegetarian or vegetables. And you see some animals like deer who are starting to trend more nocturnal during certain times of the year. So it's noted that in some areas during hunting seasons, deers tend to trend more nocturnal because it's a safer time for them to be out and active. But I would say on majority, yeah, they tend to be pretty carnivorous animals out hunting at night.
Very cool question. Thanks, guys. All right, we're going to go to Fremont Elementary, one of my favorite schools that we've had on, I think, 5,000 times over the course of our broadcast. Welcome in, double class. If you got a question for us, you're good to go. Hey.
How small are wolves when they're born?
Oh, cool.
How small are wolves when they're born? So let me think of a dog that's kind of comparable to them. If you've ever seen like a German Shepherd puppy or a Husky puppy, they are pretty comparable to that. So it's very similar to what a dog would be for us. I'm trying to see if there's anything around me that I can use as a comparable size here. And there might just be something. Now, it's not a live animal, but I would say a puppy is about, this is a beaver demonstration here, but the wolf puppies are about this big or so when they're born, this kind of stump section here that you can see. So you could easily pick them up in your hand.
In the annals of stretch analogies, thank you for that, Marielle. That was beautiful. A wolf puppy's about as big as the bottom half of this beaver chunk.
We use what we can on hand.
Yes. Amazing question, guys. All right, I'm going to go to YouTube for a quick question, and then we're going to go to Miss Nicholas's class, grade 2's next. Don't worry, I'm coming to everyone, I promise. But from Alaska, Miss Tamash's class wants to know, how do owls turn their heads without getting hurt?
Oh, yeah. That's a great question. So they are, like I said before, and we saw with Butters, they can rotate that head so far around. It's really incredible to see that. And it has to do with their vertebrae in their neck and how they're kind of connected to each other and how many they have. So if everyone wants to do a quick experiment right now with me, and you can actually feel the back of your neck and feel for your vertebrae. We're a mammal here as humans, so we have 7 neck vertebrae. Different animals or different types of animals have different amounts of them, and the kind of flexibility and different sizes of them can give them that different rotation in their necks.
Yeah. So owls classically have 14, so twice the number of neck bones that we do, and that allows them to turn much more easily. So great question, guys. All right, Miss Nicholas's class, grade 2, so unmute your mic, come on in, and take us away with a question if you're good to go. Hey, folks.
Hello, thank you for having us.
Hi.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep, perfectly.
Okay, so I have a grade 2 friend, Dara, want to know, how do turtles breathe underwater?
Ooh.
Oh, that's always a classic question when we bring out the turtles. So they actually have lungs. So they are classified as a reptile, which means they breathe with lungs, and they breathe the air just like we do. So even though we have some turtles underwater here, you'll see that a good amount of them, we got one here, one back there. There's, I think, a couple by their basking lamp, and we've got 2 up on the side over here. They're out of the water, kind of basking in the sunlight right now, or kind of faux sunlight that we have for them. And so they're breathing air just like we do. Now, one thing they can do, which is pretty fun, is when they do hibernate and they go fully underwater here in Canada for the very long winter that we have, they do a process where essentially they're able to breathe out of their butts. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but that's usually the line that gets people excited about them. But so they can do that when they are hibernating, but typically they're just breathing air just like we do. They can just hold their breath for a lot longer than we can.
Great question, grade 2s. All right, we're going to head to Miss Fisher, our St. Mary's crew, and then our FTA crew to wrap up. I know we could talk all day about all these amazing nocturnal animals, but there's so many of you, so I'm trying to take as many as I can. Miss Fisher's class, come on in and take us away. Welcome in, folks.
How far can an owl fly?
Ooh.
Oh, how far can an owl fly? I don't know if I've ever gotten that question before. And Jesse's here to attest. It's not often that I get one that I don't hear that frequently. How far can they fly? So they are expert flyers. Let me think through this for a second. How can they fly? So I'm going to say that even though they are really good at flying, I don't think that they can do much distance flying. They are meant for kind of shorter, faster attacks of flight. So unlike something like a gull or like a seagull or a goose, they're not migrating really. They're more stationary birds. Jesse hopefully can fact check me here with some really quick typing in Google. But I'm going to say they're not flying far, but they fly very well.
So there are birds that go on really long individual flights. Owls do migrate, so actually Southern Ontario on Lake Ontario gets an amazing abundance of owls. At one of the research sites, they actually catch 300 owls a day in the fall when they're doing their migration patterns. So they can go several thousand kilometers total, but they tend to do shorter flights en route, and they don't do big flights to go hunt or fish like some of the big birds on the coast. So it's sort of a mixed question, but I really like it. So thanks, Miss Fisher's class.
There we go. We learn something new every day.
Every day. St. Mary CES, come on in, guys. And then FTA, we're going to head to you guys to wrap up right after that. But unmute your mic, Oakville, and you're good to go.
Thank you. I just had a question. Is there an animal that doesn't sleep?
Ooh.
Oh, an animal that doesn't sleep. So there's ones that definitely sleep more than others. So in this pavilion, we have Sally and Nettie, who are two-toed sloths. They're sleeping for like over 22 hours a day, which is wild. And then you have animals on the flip side, like a giraffe, who are only sleeping for 2 hours a day, but they sleep in 10 to 15-minute naps. I can't think off the top of my head if there's an animal who doesn't sleep at all. Everyone sleeps some sort of amount, just in different ways and different amounts of it.
Yeah. Two things that popped to mind. First of all, the moment someone asked that, my thought went to grad students, but that's a whole different story in the future. There are animals that turn off parts of their brain at a time. So some fish that need to swim in order to breathe, they can't actually sleep and like lie still. So they'll literally turn off part of their brain at one given time. Some of you might feel like that in some of your classes sometimes, but some animals have that capacity, which is very, very cool. FTA, I know your camera's not on, but your mic should work. So I'm going to bring you in for one final question before we wrap up, folks. Welcome in. Hey.
Are bats warm-blooded or cold-blooded?
Oh, good question. I love that. So, and we're going to take this moment to dive in a little bit deeper, because when I was all your age, the term warm-blooded and cold-blooded really confused me. I didn't understand how an animal could have cold blood, and really they can't. If you have, your blood needs to be the exact right temperature for your own body. So for humans, it's about 36 and a bit degrees Celsius. Every animal is different. And if you go too far in either direction, you're in big trouble. So if you get too hot, you have a fever. And if you get too cold, you have hypothermia. And that's not fun or safe for anybody. And every animal has their own unique ability. But warm and cold-blooded has to do with how we regulate our body. And a better term for it is something called endothermic or ectothermic. So humans, we are endothermic or warm-blooded, which means our own bodies control our temperature. And we do it normally. We don't even have to think about it. I would love if I could cool my own body down by just telling my brain to stop being so hot. I really enjoy cold weather, and so I much prefer it to the hot summertime here in Toronto. Other animals like these turtles in front of us, they are cold-blooded or ectothermic. And what that means is they rely on their outside world to heat them, and they have to actively think about, oh, I'm getting a little slow and cold here. I need to eat my food. I need to warm up. Or, oh, I'm too hot. I need to go find a place to cool down. So in their exhibit at the back there, you see we have a big red light. That is a heating lamp for them. So it actually gives off a lot of heat. So turtles, when they're cold or they're digesting food, they'll go and sit under there. We call it basking. And when they get a little bit too hot, they'll come hang out in the water to cool down or find a cooler spot. And bats are a mammal, and it's famously known that mammals are endothermic or warm-blooded. There's a few exceptions out there, like a naked mole rat and a few others, but typically all animals kind of falling within their own category of mammal, reptile, bird, fish stick to either warm-blooded or cold-blooded together.
Great question, guys. I feel like I'm being judged by this turtle as we wrap up the broadcast.
Very much so.
I'm going to highlight, if people want to learn more about the amazing work of the Toronto Zoo, torontozoo.com has everything. We've also done, again, 30-plus broadcasts. If you look up any of our programs together on our YouTube channel, there is so much more to discover there. Mary Ellen, is there any last message you want to share with our kids about nocturnal wildlife before we bring in everyone for a really crazy thank you and farewell? Anything to leave us with today?
I definitely do. I hope, if anything, the only thing that you take away from today is that nocturnal animals are not to be feared. Just because they're in the dark and they're awake at a different time of day than we are does not make them scary or any less important. It actually increases their importance to us, and they should be valued. So I know it can be a little spooky because we can't see them, but that makes them extra special, and they're all doing their part in their habitat.
Very, very cool. Thank you so much, Mary Ellen. I do want to highlight too, I was going to say this earlier, I'm sorry, Earth at Night is a really cool modern documentary series highlighting a lot of creatures that live at night with some really spectacular cameras. So if you want to check that out, I can't encourage it enough as a follow-up to the broadcast. I'll make sure all our classes have that link too. But Mary Ellen and the zoo team, as you know, we're going to bring in everyone. So kids, if you want to lose your minds for like 2 seconds, this LaBlanche class, room 9 and 12, our Mundelin Fremont Elementary